Have you ever noticed something strange about people who think deeply? They are often quiet. They don't speak much. They observe more than they react. And even when they are surrounded by people, they still feel alone. But here's the paradox. Those same people often carry a silent power inside them. Today, we're going to explore why deep thinkers feel lonely, and why that loneliness is not a weakness, but the first sign of strength. Section 1. Who deep thinkers really are. Deep thinkers are not people who think too much. They are people who think differently. They don't accept life at surface level. They question motives, meanings, and patterns. Where others see events, deep thinkers see causes. Where others hear words, deep thinkers sense intentions. They live more in their inner world than the outer one, and that alone sets them apart. Section 2. Why they feel lonely around people. Deep thinkers often feel lonelier in a crowd than when they're alone. Why? Because most conversations don't match their depth. While people talk about daily drama, social validation, surface achievements, deep thinkers are thinking about human behavior, emotional patterns, hidden fears, long-term consequences. That mismatch creates distance, not because deep thinkers are arrogant, but because their mental frequency is different. Section 3. Depth creates separation. Depth naturally separates people. The deeper you think, the fewer people you truly connect with. Deep thinkers notice emotional inconsistency, fake confidence, social masks. They see what others ignore. And once you see behind the mask, casual interaction feels exhausting. So they choose silence. Not because they are weak, but because silence feels more honest. Section 4. Being misunderstood. Many deep thinkers grow up feeling misunderstood. They are told, "You think too much, you're too serious, just relax." But deep thinking is not tension. It's awareness. When society rewards distraction, awareness feels abnormal. And when you don't fit in, loneliness becomes familiar. Section 5. Why most people avoid deep thinking. Here's a truth most people don't admit. Deep thinking is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront your own flaws, painful memories, uncomfortable truths. Most people prefer distraction over reflection. Phones, noise, entertainment. Deep thinkers don't escape their thoughts, they sit with them. Section 6. Loneliness as a side effect of awareness. Loneliness is not the problem. Unawareness is. Deep thinkers are lonely because they are awake. They don't need constant validation. They don't chase approval. They don't fear silence. And when you don't depend on others for mental comfort, you naturally stand alone. Section 7. Emotional depth and sensitivity. Deep thinkers feel more, not because they are weak, but because they are perceptive. They sense emotional shifts, unspoken tension, hidden pain. That sensitivity can feel heavy, but it also builds emotional intelligence. They understand emotions instead of running from them. Section 8. Why deep thinkers withdraw. Deep thinkers often withdraw socially, not out of fear, but out of clarity. They protect their mental energy. They know not every conversation deserves attention, not every person deserves access. That selectiveness looks like loneliness from the outside, but inside it's peace. Section 9. Loneliness versus solitude. Loneliness hurts. Solitude heals. Deep thinkers slowly learn the difference. They stop chasing connection and start valuing alignment. And when that shift happens, loneliness begins to transform. Deep thinkers don't feel lonely because they lack people. They feel lonely because they see too clearly. And clarity always comes at a cost. But that cost is only the beginning. Loneliness was never the end of the journey. For deep thinkers, loneliness is the training phase. It's the quiet space where the mind sharpens itself, where emotions are understood instead of avoided, and where strength is built without applause. Most people think power looks loud, but deep thinkers discover something different. Real power grows in silence. And in this part, we'll explore how deep thinkers transform loneliness into power, why they are emotionally stronger than they appear, and why their calm presence often unsettles others. Section 1. The quiet power most people miss. Deep thinkers rarely look powerful. They don't dominate conversations. They don't chase attention. They don't try to impress. But that's exactly what makes them dangerous in a psychological sense. Their power doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from controlling themselves. While others react instantly, deep thinkers pause. And that pause is not hesitation. It's awareness. They observe what's happening inside before responding. Section 2. Why emotional control is real power. Most people believe emotions control them. Anger pushes them to react. Fear pushes them to avoid. Deep thinkers experience the same emotions, but they don't let emotions drive their behavior. They step back mentally and ask, why am I feeling this? What triggered it? That ability creates emotional distance. And emotional distance creates clarity. Deep thinkers don't suppress emotions. They understand them. In moments of chaos, they remain calm. Section 3. Why deep thinkers are hard to manipulate. Manipulation depends on emotional blindness. Deep thinkers are not blind. They notice patterns. They notice when words don't match actions. They notice emotional pressure disguised as concern. They notice guilt tactics hidden behind kindness. Because they think deeply, they don't accept behavior at face value. That awareness makes manipulation ineffective. You can't control someone who sees clearly. Section 4. Why deep thinkers intimidate without trying. Deep thinkers don't try to intimidate. They don't raise their voice. They don't show aggression. Yet people often feel uneasy around them. Why? Because deep thinkers see through social masks. They don't react to fake confidence. They don't play along. That neutrality can feel threatening. When someone cannot be easily read or influenced, they disrupt the usual power dynamics. And that's silent power. Section 5. The dark side of seeing too much. But let's be honest. Deep thinking is not always empowering. There is a dark side. When you see reality clearly, you also see suffering clearly. Deep thinkers understand pain, not just their own, but others. They notice injustice. They notice broken patterns in people and systems. And that awareness can feel heavy. Ignorance protects many. Deep thinkers don't have that luxury. Section 6. Existential weight and mental fatigue. Deep thinkers often experience existential thoughts. Questions like, what's the point of all this? Why do people repeat the same mistakes? Why does meaning feel fragile? These thoughts don't come from weakness. They come from awareness. But if unmanaged, they can lead to mental fatigue. That's why deep thinkers must learn balance. Depth without grounding can become isolation. Section 7. Deep thinking versus overthinking. This distinction matters. Overthinking is driven by fear. It repeats thoughts without resolution. It creates anxiety. Deep thinking is driven by curiosity and clarity. It asks questions to understand. It leads to insight. It eventually reaches peace. But it brings understanding. Section 8. Why solitude strengthens deep thinkers. Solitude is not escape. For deep thinkers, solitude is processing time. It's where they organize thoughts. In silence, their mind resets. That's why they don't fear being alone. They fear noise that blocks clarity. Solitude gives them back control. Section 9. The transformation point. There is a moment in every deep thinker's life. A quiet realization. I don't need to be understood by everyone. That moment changes everything. Because the need for approval fades. Freedom appears. Loneliness no longer feels like rejection. It feels like choice. Section 10. Power without showing it. Deep thinkers don't show power. They embody it. They don't argue unnecessarily. They don't explain themselves to everyone. They move carefully. They speak when it matters. And because they don't waste energy, their presence feels grounded. People listen when they speak. Section 11. Why deep thinkers often become leaders. Many strong leaders were deep thinkers, not loud leaders. Quiet ones. They observed systems. They understood people. They predicted consequences. They didn't rush decisions. And because of that, their decisions carried weight. Leadership requires clarity. Section 12. Maturity beyond age. Deep thinkers often feel mentally older. They understand consequences early. They question illusions. They outgrow shallow goals. That maturity can feel isolating, but it also creates wisdom. They don't rush life. They move intentionally. Section 13. Why deep thinkers value meaning over pleasure. Surface pleasure fades quickly. Deep thinkers seek meaning, alignment, and depth, not instant gratification. They're not disconnected. They're selective. That's why they may seem detached from trends. They're seeking depth. Section 14. Using deep thinking as a tool. Depth must be guided. Without action, thinking becomes stagnation. Deep thinkers grow strongest when they reflect then act. Thinking alone is not power. Thinking combined with intention is reflect, then act, then reflect again. That is the path to growth. Section 15, the final shift. When deep thinkers stop fighting their nature, when they stop trying to fit into shallow spaces, when they accept their depth, loneliness turns into peace, and peace turns into strength. If you are a deep thinker, your loneliness was never a flaw. It was preparation. You were learning emotional control, awareness, self-trust. And those qualities don't shout. They last. Prepare for the journey ahead. Deep thinkers don't need to prove their power because their mind already knows who they are. And that quiet certainty is the strongest form of power there is.